Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all here. We got 3 people watching. We're gonna wait around 2 minutes for people to show up. I'm not gonna wait the full 5 minutes because if people are late and they're thinking, oh, he starts at 11:05 every time. Not the case. I'm gonna start speeding things up for this week, and so if people don't show up and they show up late, that's their problem. They gotta wait till the end of the video to get the full video. So let's talk about any announcements that we have for this week. So I'm thinking for your class, we can actually push back the deadline to Friday for both the part 1 and part 2 of your culminating. Okay, and that's just for the culminating. All quizzes will be handed in on Thursday, and I will be not accepting anything else handed in past that. Okay, so the quiz from yesterday, the quiz from like last week, both of those will be due still on Thursday, but for the culminating, you have until the end of Friday to hand it in. And I want that handed in on Friday because I need to finish all the marks and I need to put in all the report card marks by the end of, I think, early next week. So that's going to kind of be the timeline. I'm going to add in some notes, an announcement on Google Classroom on how the marks are going to go, because that's pretty important. You guys need to understand, how the marks will happen and stuff like that. So we'll definitely do that. Oh, that's something in my eye. But yeah, that's the idea. Does anyone have any questions so far, or are we good? If we're good, then we're just gonna jump right into it. So we're gonna be working on 8.2 today, which is a concept called sine law. This right here, and it looks like the quality of this is not great right now. Give me 1 second. Okay. So hopefully you guys have this open. If you don't have this open, please open it up. Okay. So sine law. Main thing that we have to learn before we even look at this equation here, we need to understand how to label a triangle. It seems very basic, right? How do we label a triangle? And some of you may already remember how, but let's kind of go over what is required to label a triangle. So the main thing is that the vertices of the triangle, the corners of the triangle, are labeled with capital letters, and this is to indicate the angles. So this is essentially saying this is angle A, this is angle B, and this is angle C. So we use capital letters to indicate our angles there. Now, if we're talking about sides, we talk about corresponding sides. So if this is angle A, opposite to angle A would be side A, and we use lowercase letters for that. And then opposite to angle B, we use lowercase b. Opposite to angle C, we use lowercase c. So we make sure that we understand how to label our triangle. This is important to understand our formula here. This formula is really, really important for us to understand. Okay. So, going through it here. If we don't have right angle triangles, because we use primary trig ratios, we use SOHCAHTOA, that's all for right angle triangles. But if we don't have right angle triangles, we need to find another way to solve our triangles. And so we're going to learn two methods, which is the sine law and the cosine law. And so today with the sine law, we're working with this formula here. You'll see three ratios. A over sine A is equal to B over sine B is equal to C over sine C. Okay? That's your first one. And the second one is, you'll notice all the ratios are flipped. Sine A over A equals sine B over B equals sine C over C. So, main thing that you have to understand here. Okay? You can use either or, but there's always a better choice for a specific scenario. So use these when solving side lengths. And the reason why I say that is so that when we do the actual solving and we're trying to solve for what the side length is, this side will make it easier instead of having to like flip fractions or do more steps in your algebra. So the left side will make it easier when you solve side lengths, which means the right side use these when solving angles. So that's important there. Okay? So use these when solving side lengths, use these when solving angles. So main thing you also have to know though is that we can only use this law in a specific scenario. And that scenario, don't you need to flip it to sine inverse anyway? So sine inverse is just a step. The reason why we're separating it into two different categories is because when you cross multiply, you're going to get your answer in the denominator if you cross multiply or something like that. So it's just taking out that denominator step. We're just making sure that the answer is always in the numerator, so there's nothing to divide in the end, right? So we're just kind of getting rid of one step if we use a specific law. So, using sine law, the restriction. Okay, important restriction. Sine law can only be used, okay, if there is an angle and its corresponding side. Okay? And another side or angle. Okay? For what is missing. So let's kind of go over this as an example, because me writing this is probably not making too much sense, but let's kind of go over it. Sine law can only be used if there's an angle and its corresponding side and another side and angle for what is missing. So the main thing you want to look for, if I have angle A, I need side A. Like I need a matching corresponding angle side pair if I even want to use the sine law. If I don't have that, like for example, let's say I have all three sides. If I don't have a single angle, I can't use the sine law because I need an angle to put into the formula. If I don't have an angle, I can't put it in, right? And if I have all three angles, then I don't have any of the sides. So it's important for us to have that angle side pair. At least one pair is required for us to solve the rest, okay? So let's kind of talk about this here and how to use it. So example A, find the unknown side length or angle, round your answer to the nearest tenth. So here we have angle B, we have angle A, we have side B, right? So this is side B and this is side A. So we're looking for all the unknown side lengths, we're looking for all the unknown side lengths that are indicated or all the other angles that are indicated. So we're trying to find side A. Okay, we're trying to find side A. So let's make sure, do we have an angle pair? Angle side pair, and yes, we do. This pair here, we have angle B and side B. That is a corresponding angle pair. We're using both of the letters of B, both capital letter, angle, and lowercase letter, B. Okay, so we're solving for side length, so we want to use the left side of this top equation here. Right? We set the left side, allows us to use the side length. So to set this up, I'm going to put the missing side length on the left, and I'm going to put the side length that I know on the right. Now we're going to plug in all the values we know. We don't know lowercase a. We do know capital A, which is 53 degrees. We know lowercase b, is 36. And we know capital B, which is our angle, sine of 78. Now, if you don't like solving this and you don't like working with decimals, you can rearrange it beforehand. So, of course, we're going to rearrange it here. We're going to move the sine 53. We're going to multiply to the other side. And that's going to give me 36 sine 53 divided by sine 78. And we can do that all on a calculator, making our life much simpler. So let me open my calculator here on my phone so you can see. Let me turn down the brightness. Okay. So we have here 36 sine 53. I'm going to divide that by sine 78. And I get 29.39 or 29.4 because we have to round to the nearest tenth. So A is equal to 29.4 centimeters because we have centimeters as our side length units there. Okay. So once you're able to understand, like, oh, I have a angle side pair here, I can actually solve what I'm looking for, right? I can actually figure that out. So let's go to our second example. I'll leave the first one there for people to copy. Okay, so first one is there for people to copy. So this second one here, we have two angles. We have a side. So we have our missing side and our angle, so that's fine. But for our angle, we don't have the side, and for this side, we don't have our angle. We don't have that corresponding angle side pair. However, can we find it? Absolutely. Right? Just because you don't have it doesn't mean you can't use it right away. Can you make sure that you can use it? And absolutely, you can solve for that last angle. So this angle here, we know is going to be 180 minus 56 minus 43. Right? We know that it's going to be like that. Right? We should understand that all three angles of a triangle add to 180. That's a rule you already know. So that's going to be 81. Right? 81 degrees. So this is 81 degrees. And now we have our angle side pair. We have our capital B and our lowercase b. That's what we know. And we're trying to solve for angle or side A. Right? So we can solve this. We just had to use a little bit of our brain power to figure out what was missing. Right? So we're still using our previous like triangle and trig skills and things that we know. Like we know that all angles in a triangle add to 180, right? We know that rule. So we can use that to apply it here. So when we set it up, we're solving for a side length, so we're still going to copy that same formula. So A over sine A equals B over sine B. We plug in everything that we know. And then we multiply the sine 56 to the other side. And then that allows us to solve for our side. So to solve for our side, we do the math here. I'll just type it in here so you can see. So 38 sine of 56 we have there, and then I'm going to divide it by sine 81. Is going to give me, rounded to the 10th place, is going to be 31.9 centimeters, and there we have it. So that's what side A is going to be. Okay, so you're looking for that pair. We need this pair. We need a pair that we know. If we don't have this known pair, we can't solve, right? We would have been stuck if we weren't unable to solve for that B, right? So since we solved for it, we can finish solving it, okay? So that's question B. Does anyone have any questions so far? If not, we're going to keep going through our examples, okay? We're going to keep going through our examples. I'm gonna give you two to try. I'm gonna go through one example and then I'll give you the next one to try on your own, and then I'll go through another example and I'll give you another one to try on your own. Okay. Let's go through the next example here. So, example C. We're looking for angle A. We have angle C. We have its corresponding pair. We have that matching pair here, so we're good. We have the side matching with angle A, so we're good there too. So since we're solving for an angle now, we're going to put sine A on top. And for us, it's sine C over C. Okay, so we're going to use two of the fractions, but since we're solving for an angle now, we're going to put A on top. Now, we can solve this question here. We plug in our values that we know. So sine A we don't know. Lowercase a we do know. It's 26. Sine C we know is 53. And lowercase c is 37. So there's our values there. We're going to multiply the 26 like we did before. But we remember that multiplying a number to a trig function puts the number in the front. And then, like Nee said in the chat, we do need to do sine inverse. So if we did everything kind of in one step, or you wanted to show it in one step, you can do this. Sorry. You can do that, or you can just solve the fraction first and then plug it into your trig function. So plugging that in and solving it will give us, let's see here. So sine inverse of 26 sine 53 divided by 37 gives me 34.1 degrees. So that's me typing it in all in the calculator. But if you did like it separately, so it's 26 sine 53 divided by 37, and then you do sine inverse of that, you're still going to get the same answer. Right? So whether you solve the fraction first or you do this whole thing all at once, that's up to you. Right? You'll still get the same answer. So pick the method you want, but you should get 34.1 degrees for angle A. Which means I'm going to leave you with question D. I'll leave question C as an example there. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to solve for question D, and then we'll take it up. All right, so 3 minutes on the clock. I'll play a song for you guys, and then you can get started. All right, see you in 3 minutes. All right. So I'm just going to write the answer first, and let's see if you got the right answer for this question. You're solving for side x. You should have gotten as your final answer, I'll write it at the very bottom here, x is equal to 18.7 degrees. Sorry, angle x, sorry, not side x. 18.7 degrees. That's what you should have gotten. Okay? So if you got 18.7 degrees, you're good. If you did not get 18.7 degrees, let's check our work. Gyujin asked, when is our part 1 culminating assignment due? That's been due since last week, but your final deadline is this Friday, I think. Yeah, I'm going to set it to this Friday. So you have until Friday, but you also have to do part 2 of your culminating as well. So make sure you do part 2 as well. Okay, so let's take a look at this here. To set up, I'm solving for side x. We have our corresponding angle side here, right? And we technically have our second one here for x, right? We have our x one here too. Oops. So we have both. So we can set up our equation. You should have set it up as sine x over 6 is equal to sine 75 over 18. Okay? Sine x over 6 is equal to sine 75 over 18. Moving things around, we get sine x is equal to 6 sine 75 over 18. If you solve this fraction here, you should get approximately sine x is equal to like 0.32, I believe, around this value. So if you inverse that value, I should do approximately. If you do that, you approximately get 18.7 degrees. Now, if there's something wrong with how I solved it, please let me know, but I'm pretty sure that is correct and I didn't make any decimal mistakes or anything like that. 18.7 degrees should be your answer. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense. So let's move on into our second part or second sheet of our sine law. We're just going to go over 2 more examples. One example I'll go over. Second example you will try on your own. Okay? So looking here, solve for triangle ABC. So notice how there's no diagram, but that doesn't stop you from drawing a quick diagram. Like, doesn't matter what triangle it is, you can still draw it. ABC, and we can write down all the values that we know. So we know angle A is 64, so that's 64. Side A is 10.4, so that's the opposite side, so 10.4. And B is 7.1, so we said this is B, so this must be 7.1. Okay, so there we have it. Those are the sides that we know, but then it says solve, and if anyone remembers what solve means, right? If you don't remember what solve means, find all missing sides and angles. So you're not done until every single missing piece of information is given. Okay? You need to find every single piece of information. Right? So this is a longer question. I can give you something simple like this, and it could take you 5 minutes because you're trying to solve for all the missing sides and all the missing angles. So let's kind of go through each one. The first thing you're solving for should be the same for every single person in this room, or in this room watching this video. The one that we're solving for is angle B. We have a matching angle side pair. We have 7.1, which is lowercase b. We need capital B. So we need to solve for that. So sine B over B is equal to sine A over A. Then we're going to plug in everything we know. There we have it. And then we can solve for our B value, right? So B is equal to sine inverse. I'm just going to rush through because I'm running out of space here and I need as much space as I can. You should get 7.1 sine 64 over 10.4, and of course the sine inverse of that would be B. Okay? This is going to give me a B value, or an angle, of 37.6 degrees. Okay? We're going to get 37.6 degrees. So once we find that angle, we now know this one here. We know this angle. The next thing we can solve for, we have two angles of a triangle, which means we can solve for angle C now. Angle C is pretty easy to solve for. We just need to subtract from 180 our two other angles. So we're going to subtract 64 and subtract 37.6, right? So that's pretty straightforward. We can solve for angle C here, and subtracting that is going to give me 78.4 degrees. Okay, so now we've already solved angle A, B, and C, which means we only have one thing left, which is side C. Okay, so we've solved angle B. We were going to solve angle C, which we did, and now we're going to solve side C. So C over sine C, and we're going to use what we know from the beginning. We're not going to use angle B and side B because we solved for angle B. We want to make sure we have minimal mistakes, so we're going to go back and use side A. Okay? So we're going to do A over sine A, and plugging that in, we get side C, which we don't know, sine of 78.4 is equal to A, which is 10.4, over sine 64. So we have that there. Moving things around, we get 10.4 sine of 78.4 all over sine 64. And plugging that in our calculator will give us our final value. So let's plug in our value here. So 10.4, I'll show you here. So 10.4 times sine 78.4. Oops. Divided by sine 64 gives us 11.3 degrees. Oh, sorry, not degrees. Centimeters. And there we have it, 11.3 centimeters. Okay, and there we go. So that's solving. That's your full solution to solving that one question. You need to find all missing sides and angles, because if you don't, then you're not getting full marks. So you need to solve for everything that's missing for you to get the correct answer. So let's solve for triangle DEF. what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna zoom out so you can see all of it here. Okay. I'm gonna draw the triangle for you here. Okay, so setting up DEF, so I'll do DEF. Okay. Let's write down what we know. We know angle E, which is 64. We know angle F, which is 78. And we know side E, which is 15. Okay? Now this one can go in two different ways. You can solve it in two different ways. It depends on what you want to solve first. But I'll leave that to you. Once again, more than one way of getting the right answer. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to solve this question. 5 minutes. Okay? 5 minutes to solve the question, and then we'll take it up. Okay? So 5 minutes on the clock, starting now. See you in 5 minutes. All right, you should be finishing up now. Let's kind of go through the steps that I personally would go through. For me, solving for the angle is number one. I can solve for angle D. Angle D, I can solve for using the other two angles. We already have two of the three, which means we can just subtract angle E and angle F to get angle D. So we can do that. That's going to give me 38 degrees. Okay, I'm going to do that first. So that way, I can start solving the two sides that are missing, right? We're missing side F, and we're, side F, and this is side D. Right? So we're missing those two sides. So we can solve for angle D first, and that allows us to focus on the two sides right away. So let's solve for side D first, I guess. Let's solve for side D. So I'm just going to plug it right in, the values we know, just to save some space. And I'm going to use side E as my base. So I'm using the side E angle base pair, which I'll highlight here. Right? This is the pair that we knew since the beginning. So I'm always going to be using that pair to solve for my missing ones. Okay? And then D over sine 38. And so when I rearrange it, I get 15 sine 38 over sine 64. And multiplying and dividing all of that, you should have gotten a value of approximately 10.3 centimeters. Okay? So 10.3 centimeters for D. For E, or sorry, for F, when we're solving for F, similar idea. We're going to plug in our values here. And we're still going to use side E and angle E as the pair that we're using to solve it with. Okay? So, solving this here, rearranging it, we get 15 sine 78 over sine 64, and we can solve for F. Okay? So F is going to be 16.3 centimeters. If you got all three of these answers right, then you are on a great track. That's really good. Some of these might be helpful for your part one of your culminating, which is why I'm making it due on Friday, right? There are some trig things that I didn't teach you until last week that you needed for the ending part of your culminating. So this is important to have. So tomorrow we're going to be talking about cosine law. The next day we're going to be talking about solving two triangles, questions with two triangles. And then we're technically done teaching lessons for the course. And then Friday there's no lesson because I want you to focus on finishing all of your culminating assignments and any missing quizzes or tests. I will not be accepting anything past the Saturday. Okay? So, I will post an update about how marks are going to work for culminating, but I'm going to explain to you here for those watching. A lot of people are thinking, oh, I don't have to do the culminating, or, oh, is this only going in our mark if it's greater than what I currently have? And my answer to you is, the rule for the culminating, whatever your mark was before the March break, which means that mark before March break is probably lower than your current mark now, right? So if that's the case, any culminating that's greater than your March break mark gets added in. So let's say in March break you had a 70 and right now you have an 80. If you get a 75 on your culminating, I'm putting that culminating mark in, which means your mark's going to drop. So you can't just half-ass your culminating, right? So keep that in mind. As I mark your culminating, you can't just half-ass it. Double check your work, triple check your work. Make sure that you are satisfied with your answer and what you think you will be getting greater than your culminating. I never said Friday we have a quiz, yes, Dan. I said Friday you're going to be focusing on your culminating assignment and any quizzes that you haven't finished yet. That's what I said. So hopefully that clarifies things for you, yes, Dan. Okay? So Friday, no class. You're focusing on finishing all the work that has not been completed yet, if you have not done so. So don't panic. It's not like a new quiz or anything. Other than that, that's pretty much it. So hopefully the marking makes sense and how I'm doing it, and that's a little bit more clear for you guys, okay? That being said, I'll see you tomorrow. Make sure you focus on finishing your culminating, especially the part 1 and part 2. I'll be taking both of those marks, okay? And I'll see you in the next one. All right, see you tomorrow. Peace out.